Hello, parents. My name is Skye, Eddy, Bruce, and I am the founder of the Soccer Parenting Association. I wanted to take a moment to welcome every parent in the state of Utah with a player that's registered with your state association to the Soccer Parent Resource Center. Thanks to the amazing commitment of Utah Youth Soccer Association, every parent with a registered player in the state of Utah now has access to the Soccer Parent Resource Center. This is a membership-protected site where you will find access to articles and interviews that are especially created for youth soccer parents so that you can be sure that your child is thriving and inspired. I look forward to catching up with all of you at the Soccer Parent Resource Center. Information on how you can register is below.
I'm the founder of the Soccer Parenting Association, where our mission is to inspire players by empowering parents. I know that term, empowering parents, can be a little scary. We'll dive into that and what we're really talking about in terms of what our mission is and what the mission is of the organization. I'm a former player. I played collegiately. I played professionally. I was an All-American in college. I've coached since I was in high school. I was a longtime director for Dr. Matnick and Tony Chico with their camps. I'm a goalkeeper. I have my B license. I'm a coach educator for United Soccer Coaches. I'm in process of getting my instructor's license now with U.S. Soccer. So, I have a strong background in the game. I'm also a parent. I have a 15-year-old son who's a recreational level player, and I have an 18-year-old daughter who plays in the ECNL, is committed to play collegiately in Division III. So I've really kind of seen the gamut from a parent's perspective as well. I think that's important for you to understand, where I'm coming from. It's kind of really important. Parent engagement, thankfully, has kind of become a little bit of a buzzword. I was talking the other day to Kyle Martino, who called because he's trying to understand what I'm doing. He's seen a lot of it. And he's like, everyone's talking about parent engagement. What really is that, and what do you mean by it? So we're going to dive in and give you all a good definition of what parent engagement is, and what issues that we hope parent engagement will solve. And also, we're going to dive into the research. There's some really great research on parent engagement and on the effects and the benefits in schools, and we'll relate that to clubs. We'll talk about what exactly it looks like for you. There's an exercise I'll have you all go through in terms of that. And then we know there's a lot of roadblocks to parent engagement. We'll discuss that. We'll talk about club culture. I'll talk a little bit more with the directors later. I'll be presenting at the board meeting. I'm talking about actual club culture there as well. And then the required coach education that's necessary if we're really going to do this. And then the state of Utah has made a huge commitment to parent education and engagement by giving every parent in the state access to the Soccer Parent Resource Center, the education platform that I've created for youth soccer parents. I've solved the parent education dilemma that you all have, and you all have access to give this to all of your parents, so we'll dive into the specifics of that. I'd like to start real quick just with a really, really quick icebreaker for you all, because we are going to be doing one collaborative exercise later. So if you can just spend maybe 1 minute and look around to the people that you don't know. So if you're sitting next to people you know, but you don't know the people behind you, just introduce yourselves really quickly. And, if you can talk about your why, and we'll dive into that in just a second. Like why you're coaching, why you're here, why you're spending an entire day here, why you get out on the fields, why you spend the time volunteering that you spend. So again, I'll give you, we'll just do 1 minute, maybe 90 seconds on that. Thanks.
He just took the grassroots course. So he was at the local.
I'm Eric. Nice to meet you, Eli.
You're with Strikers?
Oh, Park City. Okay. Strikers is a label, so yeah, I coach. Yeah.
Oh, Caitlin Young?
Because my daughter's on the team.
Good. What age is she? And then you have a daughter on the team? Is that some of the inspiration why you coach?
Me neither.
About volunteering.
But I think just my son, my daughter, now Miss Daughter, and
Nice to meet you.
You guys haven't worked with Doug's mom, I guess? There's no Doug's mom? Raise his hand. Oh, did you see this? Yeah. I interviewed Doug last week for the Resource Center. I don't know if you saw the whole video. The 60 minutes is phenomenal, but I pushed out a link the other day. So thanks for mentioning that. Anyone want to share your why real quick?
Spend time with my kids.
Good. Excellent. Opportunity to spend time with your children.
I grew up here in the 80s. I played club soccer and did have the greatest experience with coaches and thought maybe that's what I could do is a little bit different.
Great. Love it. I'm going to make a difference. On a different path.
Satisfaction of seeing kids achieve more than they thought they could.
Excellent. Excellent. I love it. I worked a lot for Dr. Matt Mick, and his little theme, and that still runs in my head, is that, we'd be in like week 5 of camp, we're exhausted, these are grueling weeks, and he'd be walking out to the fields, and I'll never forget, Doc put his arm around me, and he's like, in his gruffy voice, do you know who he is? He's the guy that does the referee analysis a lot on Fox. He's that gruffy voice, and he's like, positively affecting the lives of youth, and that still rings true with me. We're positively affecting these kids' lives. Why is parent engagement important? Something that we're starting to feel like it's important. What was your little laugh for?
But they actually drive everybody here. I mean, without them, we don't have anything to actually do.
Okay.
And so their engagement, their buy-in to what our philosophies are, everybody has similar philosophies with different structures. And so
Good.
you have to get them involved, buy into the idea so that way we can actually be successful.
I love it. I love it. When I first started doing this work with parent engagement at the convention, the United Soccer Coaches Convention, maybe like 4 years ago, I'd have coaches coming up to me and be like, "Oh, you're the soccer parenting lady. Let me buy you a drink. Like, better you than me." Or, "Oh, all parents are crazy." I'm happy to say that at this year's convention, only once did somebody tell me the joke, "What's my favorite team to coach? A team full of orphans." 4 years ago, probably 30 people told me that joke. But our culture is changing, thankfully, because we're starting to realize that parent engagement is essential. And it was so cool for me at this year's convention to be walking around and to literally have coaches come up to me and say, "Can I get my picture with you?" Or, my wife loves your work. Can I get a picture with you for her?" And I wrote an article about this, and to be really, really clear, that did nothing for my ego, but that really, really, really warmed my heart. Because what it's saying is that the work that we've been doing with parent engagement is making a difference. And this is why parent engagement is important to me. These are my girls, this is my team. I coach a U10 team at Richmond Strikers, and 3 of those girls in that team have parents who are bordering on a crazy soccer parent, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. But why I want to engage these parents and what drives me in the work that I do every day with soccer parenting is to make sure that these girls keep playing. So what I'm hoping to accomplish through parent engagement is an improved youth soccer landscape, because what we have right now often is not working. I'm hoping to have more kids involved in sport, and we're going to start seeing the change in the curve of the dropout rate that we see in kids around middle school or as they're entering high school. That's why I care about parent engagement. Parent engagement truly will solve so many of the problems that we have in our youth landscapes today. And we'll dive into the specifics of that and what the research says about that. I don't know if I have a pointer on this one. It's not mine. Oh, I did that before. I've done that in a presentation before. Somebody taught me. I pressed the button. Top right corner is the coach here. That's Omar Cervantes playing as a kid. Omar runs Sheriff's FC in Alameda County in Northern California. It's a free club, 100% free for hundreds of kids. It's all supported from the Sheriff's Department in Alameda County. They're competing in NorCal Premier. They have programs that are just like rec level programs, having a huge, huge impact on soccer in Northern California. And Omar has really, really led this push to have similar programs around the country. And again, that was him playing as a kid. Do you guys know who this is? That's Yael Averbush. Yael's done some great work. I was just outside talking to a coach about her Techie football app and the really cool impact she's having on kids and developing some growth mindset around technical training. She's also a former American, as you can see, U.S. player. She's played professionally in the league here in the States, and she's currently the head of the Players Union for the women. She's doing amazing things in the game and grew up playing in New Jersey. The guy in the red going up for a header, Lawrence Can. Lawrence is the founder of Street Soccer USA. Initially, they started working with a lot of homeless kids. Now they're having a huge impact in the urban growth of soccer in the United States. What many of us will say is where there's a huge opportunity for us to impact more people's lives. And Lawrence is really leading the way there and started playing in Richmond, Virginia. That's Patrick Ianni. Patrick and his friend Seth Taylor just wrote these two amazing books. You can find them on the soccer parenting site. One's for parents and one's for coaches, really diving deep into motivation and what we're hoping to see. If you have a crazy soccer parent, you can buy them this book, and if they're willing to go through it, it will definitely help. And finally, this is Greg Simmons. Greg owns a program in Richmond called Own Touch, where both of my kids have gone. My son, who's a recreational level player, has found just as much joy and inspiration in his programming as my daughter, who plays at a really, really high level. Greg has changed thousands and thousands of kids' lives, and he's actually on the board for U.S. Soccer and their futsal movement, having a huge impact on futsal. So I mentioned these to you all, and I want you to see these pictures because obviously you have kids right now that you're working with on a daily basis that are going to grow up and impact the games in ways that you can't imagine. They won't necessarily be playing at a high level. Maybe they'll be coaching at some point. But what we're doing in the game right now is essential. And again, parent engagement is a huge part of solving some of these issues and making sure that these kids stay involved and stay inspired. So I'll dive a little bit into the research here. I won't spend too much time on that, but I will let you know that there is a ton of research about the value of parent engagement in schools. So for those of you sitting here and thinking about, yes, this is something that I want to do, this is your why. So benefits of engagement in schools. Schools that engage their parents have higher performing schools. So in school world, that means higher test scores compared to other schools. Benefits of engagement is also consistent homework completion. Schools that work hard to engage their parents have consistent homework completion. Their children achieve more. The kids in the school have higher aspirations to go on and go to college or are motivated to focus more on their studies. So lower dropout rate, more satisfied teachers, parents are empathetic, and also the parents' perceptions of the school improve. Okay, so this is what we know, what's been proven time and time again in hundreds and hundreds of studies about parent engagement in schools, and we need to think about what that could mean for soccer clubs. For us to have higher performing clubs, what could that mean? What could it mean? It's not a trick question.
Better performance of players.
Yeah, maybe we're winning more. I mean, we could talk about winning. We can be okay with that. You know, maybe the players are winning more. They're having, you know, we know that winning is fun. We could also flip that and say that we're impacting more kids' lives. We're positively impacting more kids' lives. We want kids to train on their own. Yes, that would be great. We want players to perform better in games, have higher aspirations and motivation. We want our kids to keep playing. We want our coaches to be more satisfied. Wouldn't that be phenomenal for those of you that are working hard every year to try to find more and more coaches? If your coaches are satisfied and they don't quit, that's a great way to start. Parents are empathetic, and the parents' perceptions of the school improve. So if I could tell you there's a way that you can have higher performing clubs, all these things on the right, and the answer to that is parent engagement. So let's dive into a little bit of the roadblocks for parent engagement. And I'm really interested in your feedback now, because if we know that, and I can see some of you shaking your head, kind of saying, okay, yeah, let's get into what these specifics are. How can we do this? Which is what I love is happening, because again, like I said, 4 years ago, 5 years ago at the convention, I was telling everybody, like, you have to consider this. This is why, like, all of my time was spent on these slides here, this type of stuff. And now when I'm talking about parent engagement, I'm talking about the how and what we're doing and what we're seeing nationally and best practices in clubs and even internationally. So it's really exciting to see that. But I know that there are some roadblocks. What do you all think are some of the roadblocks? Why aren't you engaging parents more? Why aren't your coaches engaging parents more? Mm-hmm.
It's a coach-centered program instead of a player-centered program.
Okay, it's not athlete-centered, so tell me more what you mean about that, like how that specifically plays out situationally.
Situationally, the coach takes everything on for the team, rather than having a family, team family on the sideline that's supporting the team on the field. They're trying to do it all, whereas if you get those parents participating and I assign roles. If they all have a role, they're engaged.
Cool.
They're participating. They're all happy. They're not yelling at refs or doing any of the obnoxious stuff that we all cringe about.
Yeah, tell us more about that later when we go into specifics. So I'd be really interested to hear about what your roles are for parents. Why else are we engaging? Huh?
Just a variation in what parents are looking for in a program. Some could just be interested in dropping their kids off as a daycare environment. Some could be interested in them going being national team players, right? But
yeah.
I think that variation creates a difficult dynamic for engagement from the club because you have to approach it in several different ways to get those parents engaged.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a really important point that we understand. I know I've referenced a couple times on this article I wrote after the convention, but it struck me that where I was 4 years ago with coaches in terms of parent engagement, like convincing them, yeah, consider this. This is a great path. This will solve so many of our problems. That's where we are now, because coaches have kind of come a long way, and now we're with parents, convincing them. Some parents are kind of bought in, like before some coaches were bought in, but I think that the biggest change that we're going to see in these next few years is getting parents aligned so that now you might have 1 or 2 or 3 parents on your team that are really connected in a positive way. 4, 5, 6 years from now, we want to have your whole team like that. Maybe I lost my mic. We want to have your whole team like that. Any other barriers or roadblocks that we're seeing to parent engagement?
I think if most coaches are really honest with themselves, it's just scary to have the adults involved. They want to be the only adult that's controlling everything, and it's scary to bring in the opinions.
I hear you. So what we'll talk about is opening the door to parents and also closing it. Like knowing how to open it, because it's such an undefined relationship that we really need to define it for our sake so we feel more comfortable as coaches engaging parents, but also for parents' sake, so they know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and we need to define that. We'll talk a little bit about that. And why is it scary for coaches? Why is that even a fact?
They don't know what they don't know.
Maybe, yeah, because coaches need education. Love it, yeah, obviously.
A lot of the coaches don't know know a lot about the sport.
And they might not even know about the sport. I mean, yeah.
So if you've had one bad experience with a parent, it impacts how you view every future exchange.
100%. I mean, crazy parents have ruined this for us. I mean, it's no wonder that so many of us are like, I don't want to give them any power. Because on my team right now, like I said, this has been a super, super hard year for me with my team. I'm like the parent whisperer. This is not supposed to be a problem on my team, right? And I'll tell you, I had a parent meeting on Thursday night. I got in my car and I cried after the parent meeting. I sat in my car and tears were falling down my face out of frustration because I want to help these kids so much and I cannot figure out how to get through to a couple of these parents. And I was so shocked and upset by the questions that one of these dads asked in the meeting about like technical, tactical decisions that I'm making in the middle of a game. he thinks that's appropriate to bring up. So I hear you, and we have to understand that a lot of the reasons of why we haven't engaged parents is because as coaches we have been burned on this before. And one crazy parent can really ruin it. What I want you all to think about though is that's how parents feel also. If you're a level-headed parent and you have a question and maybe you're feeling some stress, legitimate stress about your child, the last thing that you want to be perceived as is a crazy soccer parent. And so unfortunately what's happened is that the level-headed parents, the ones we really should be reaching for and helping, supporting, and guiding, the ones that really are going to be the difference makers, those parents have been silenced too, because they're so afraid of being perceived as a crazy soccer parent. So a couple of things that I think that we need to ask ourselves related to this. And this is important questions for you all. I'm not going to take the time to go through this like in really, really deep detail here, but I would encourage you to maybe take some pictures of these screens and spend some time and journal this, reflect on this. But I really want to ask you, what do you believe to be true about soccer parents? Go ahead.
They want their kids to be successful.
Yes. They want their kids to be successful. I think that when we reflect on this, that we'll realize also that sometimes we do have stress. I have stress. That dad that keeps like bringing up all these technical, tactical questions with me, who, you know, of course, I'm a female coach. I'm thinking, oh man, he doesn't want a girl coaching his daughter. And so I bring that whole layer into the whole thing as well. If I'm going to be really vulnerable here, that's part of my stress in dealing with him. But, you know, we have these things that we believe to be true about parents. And we need to stop and we need to just be aware of them. We need to just have awareness. A lot of the work that I do is about emotional intelligence and coaching, and that's self-aware is the most basic, fundamental concept of emotional intelligence. So we need to be aware of what our beliefs are about parents, and I would encourage you all to look and to consider that for yourselves. What do you all think parents, when I'm talking to a group of parents, what do you think they say? What do they think about coaches?
Unapproachable.
They're unapproachable.
I get the sense that a lot of parents think you're winning as a coach, that you know what you're doing. And outside of that, you maybe just have the right qualities.
Exactly. Because parents necessarily don't know the game, and the only metric that they really have for evaluating if their child's in a good environment or not, because they want them to succeed and they want them to, you know, be inspired, is the winning and the losing. So parents probably perceive, as Britton was saying, if your team's winning, it's a good coach. If your team's losing, it must be an unqualified coach. One of the things that I find fascinating in the whole parent-coach dynamic of that relationship is this concept of power. So a lot of times coaches, if I ask coaches, they believe that parents have all the power. They're the ones that can be crazy and ruin your season, like I'm having with my team right now, or they can get you fired. They have a lot of power in the relationship. And when I talk to parents, they feel like coaches have all the power in the relationship. They're the ones that can make their child happy or not, get in the car and have a smile on their face or not. They're the ones that are going to decide if their child makes the team or plays in the game in the right position, the right amount of time. So that's parents' perceptions, and I've mentioned this to you now as we're thinking about this, just so that you can have that in the back of your mind. This whole power dynamic, we'll talk about trust in a second, is really important to that. And then I'll ask you this. You know, do you really, really believe that parent engagement is important? You have all this research. I think coaches, club directors need to reflect on the fact as if they really, really believe parent engagement is important. And then values. So the first slide that I did a second ago was on beliefs. This one's on values. When we're talking about culture and changing culture, we have beliefs, we have values, we have knowledge, like what we know to be true, as all sort of the fundamental components of culture. So it's important for us to think about what our beliefs are and what our values are, because that will drive our behavior and establish our culture. So in terms of values, do your club value statements include parents and families? That's something I'll ask in the meeting a little bit later. But do you talk about that and being important to what you're doing? And then as coaches, you know and live by your club value, by your club or your personal values. So I'll talk to you about the Soccer Parent Resource Center in a second. You'll have access to that. On that platform is coach education as well. And those are the types of things we dive into with this coach education. I'm educating coaches, you all in your clubs, and as coaches yourselves have access to this information about emotional intelligence and coaching, establishing your coaching values. There's an exercise that you can go through, but I would encourage you all to think about what your values are. And have you ever thought about parent value statements? Because, we're talking about the importance of values. If you could just maybe pass these out on this side. We're talking about the importance of values and how they drive behavior. And my question to you is, have you ever thought about establishing parent values? And probably not, I get it, so I went ahead and did it. These are all on our website. These are the soccer parent value statements. I encourage you to get these to your parents. They're on the site, you have access to them, you can download them for free, you can print them out, give them to your parents at a parent meeting. These are good guiding principles for parents to have so that they can think about and reflect upon them when they're making decisions for their child. Things like active health, coach integrity, life lessons, balanced outlook. All the things that we want parents to rally around. We're giving them this information so that they can say, and when I do this exercise with parents, they go, yes, that's what I believe to be true. I do rally around that concept, but they've never just seen it all in one place before. So there's real importance in having these value statements. And again, these are all available to you all in Utah from the State Association's commitment that they're making. So let's get into some specifics. What specifically does parent engagement look like? I'd like you all to get into groups here. I know we started late, so we won't spend too much time here. But I'd like you all to maybe, I think I have 12 or 13 of these sheets, so maybe I'll give 2 to each row, and you all get in groups of like 4 to 6. So I think probably 6 is going to be what you need in here. And just spend a little bit of time. So basically each sheet has club-wide parent engagement, coach-facilitated parent engagement, and something to think about, parent-facilitated parent engagement, what those 3 topics might be, and then thinking about yourself, like how frequently you may be doing that, just some reflection there. Then you can take this back and kind of workshop on this with your club, but I'll pass this out. Maybe I'll group. There's a couple for that group. And y'all, let's go about 3 or 4 minutes on this. So if you can try to definitely make some progress here. Sorry. So join together, move your seats, you're going to have to move around, sorry. I know, you just want to listen.
These guys what?
They went that way.
Yeah, super low.
It's quality.
It's a neutral.
Two tall people are shorter. Just finding goals. Okay, so channel energy value.
I'll be supposed to run of white. What type of club white parents are we doing?
I think there's an organization piece that I
There's so many different layers to this. Volunteerism, training, value, buy-in, areas within the
Guess what? What's the first number in December? Okay. Einstein couldn't spell it. So say that to everyone in the conversation. Just fine. Einstein couldn't spell it.
So I guess we can come up with some more like what else on the front line. That's where like volunteers and cover should come in. Certainly about things like having meetings or we did something called football forums. So I would set up these forums every time a week to engage players and have them come in and just ask questions. Just to build an opportunity after hear issues and address them bit by bit. Well, I have some that are built into like post-player placement of why the meetings and set up as well. I mean, we did 6 of them for football players. Well, how often at times seasonally.
I kind of have this two associations and basically, here's the goal and objective of our entire club. This is what you've signed up for. So they do that a lot. So they buy into, and they kind of have to, right? Because they're paying
If you haven't flipped it over yet, try to get an idea from the back.
Evaluation process for the just availability and communication. Again, so much of that was determined by what the club expectations are for communication. And the person as well, I think has to do confidence in that. So I was going to say something that is so important that the club has an understanding. They understand
Okay, great.
who they are.
Let's go ahead and just kind of discuss this. If you didn't get to all of it, that's fine. I'll go ahead and put a download of this page on the site that I'll show you a little bit I've created for Utah, so that you can, if you want, go through this exercise for your board or for the group of coaches that you might have.
Here's our training plan.
Again, I'll put that link to be able to download this form so that you all can have access to that. And then there's some little takeaways in the back here that we'll get through at the end. Okay, so 4 types of parent engagement. The first one's not on there. It's organizational driven. So that would be things that is driven down by USU Soccer, by your state association, U.S. Soccer. You know, U.S. Soccer is changing their DCC. It will now be called something different. I just forgot the name of it. Maybe within the next year, where it's going to be, the DLC, the Digital Learning Center, instead of the Digital Coaching Center. And they'll be adding parents' information to that as well. So the DCC from U.S. Soccer will be moving to the DLC. So that would be an example of large-scale organizational driven parent engagement. Okay, so what are some things that you had from a club standpoint? Club driven. You have a list there. What's some of the things on it?
Transparency.
Okay, so specifics on how a club could specifically be transparent in their parent education would be to have information readily available, policies in place, those types of things. Other ideas for club driven, yeah?
We had an idea of a survey that was open-ended about their coach, the philosophy, player development.
Great. There's some really cool surveys that are happening. There's a couple companies that have come on board that I have really significant discounts to because they're trying to test out some stuff that are club-driven feedback from parents, from players. There's a club in Colorado that's doing some really cool survey that I've seen where they're actually diving in to then relate that and layer in the winning record of the team to see if there's any real correlations between parent satisfaction and the win-loss record of the team. So there's some really cool data that we're going to start to see that will come out in forms of, I don't know about if research, like technical research might be overkill, but that we'll be able to use and to be able to learn from. Other ways that clubs can engage parents,
We had like a town hall meeting setting where
Great.
you're talking about the club's objectives, similar to what you said, other than just the team, but the club director or president saying, this is our objectives, this is our long-term plan, these are our values, this is what we want to try to instill in your children.
Love it, love it. So large-scale meeting for all of the people, the parents, club coaches, even maybe kids in the club. How else do clubs engage parents? How do they communicate with them?
Outgoing emails.
Yep. Outgoing emails, maybe on a regular basis, maybe a newsletter that you have out on a set period of time, like every month or every week. Social media, huge way that clubs are now communicating with parents is via social media. Other things that would come up, your websites, just all of the ways that clubs can engage with parents. What about coach-driven? Actually, I'm going to switch it. We'll do the coach-driven next because we'll spend a little bit more time on that. Parent-driven. Anyone get to some ideas there? Parent-driven parent engagement. Ways parents can facilitate there being this nice collaborative environment within the team.
Team events.
Love it. Yes. Like when I was growing up, anytime we went to a tournament, we went sightseeing. We whitewater rafted down the Colorado River. We, went up some tall building in Toronto. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember how thrilling it was to be in the elevator with my team at the age of 14. So we're not doing those things anymore oftentimes. Now my daughter in the ECNL goes to an event, they fly in with themselves, they get in these vans, they go to the hotel, they play their 3 games usually, and then they come home and they didn't ever see anything when she went anywhere. So I think that, team events, or it could also be parents saying, hey, we're going to have a parent meeting, or we're going to have a parent social event type thing. So those could even happen not during tournaments. Thanks for bringing that up. Anyone else? Parent-driven parent engagement? Maybe things as simple as parents carpooling together. But having that positive environment where the parents are really forming these friendships. I know that some of my parents' closest friends were the other parents were my teammates growing up. And you as coaches need to try to facilitate that. I literally, in my parent meeting that I had on Thursday, said, hey, in these 2 events that we have coming up, let's go out of our way to have a team event. We're going to be in Washington, D.C. It's really cool to go to the Lincoln Memorial at night. Let's go to dinner and then take the girls down to the Lincoln Memorial to walk around. I think that's something that I, as a coach, have to facilitate and encourage the parents then to organize, because I want to empower the parents to do those types of things. Oh, yeah?
Just one quick one. We have something called a positive culture keeper within our teams. So we have a parent volunteer who's in charge of kind of making sure that the culture on the sideline is pretty good. You know, that's hit or miss because a lot of parents don't want to be policing their peers, but at the same time, it's an educational process where you look at, say, a 9-10 age group, and then through the course of the years that they're together, everybody's going to serve as that positive culture keeper. And so hopefully you educate at least a big part of the group as you go forward.
You know, just making the effort to do that, whether or not the parent embraces that in the moment where they're being asked to be that culture keeper, what you're doing, as you know, or what they're doing, is they're saying culture is important. The culture on the sidelines is important to this team. That's a value that we have within our club, to the point where we're going to empower somebody to make sure that it's positive. So whether or not it necessarily is positive and that parent can understand and embrace that role, is comfortable in it, what you're doing is you're setting the framework for down the road, 2, 3, 4 years from now, for that culture to be really strong. So congratulations to you all for doing that. I just highlighted on our Club's Winning Culture series, there's a club in DC that's doing something similar to that. They don't have as cool of a name as you do.
It's from PCA. I mean, it's something PCA talks about a little bit. So we don't
Awesome.
have to.
Love it. Okay, so coach-driven. What are some examples? Hopefully you have a lot of these if you all are coaches. Some ways that you can engage with parents. What would be some ideas? Did you all in the back have an idea? Something on your list?
Yeah, we have to get to know, well, we talk about getting to know them personally outside of soccer. What things do they do? What does their family do? What do they like? You know, how can you relate to them on something other than coaching your child?
Love it. Good. That's great.
We had a help for you on is that guy that wants to tell you all the stats and technical things that happen. Make him in charge of stats for the team. And
That's great.
have him analyze. Give him a giant list that he has to keep track of and email to you.
I was just talking.
And give it to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we were just talking about that in the hallway, and I was like, yes, that's such a good idea. And I was thinking about that, coach, so that is good. That's similar to the idea you were sharing before.
No, so every year I meet individually with each kid on my team and their parents and just talk about how things are going, set goals for what they want to achieve. Every real one-on-one opportunity for an expectation of how parents are feeling, how the kids feeling, and what they feel like they're doing well, what they can improve on.
That's great. Yeah.
I asked my parents if they wanted to do a co-ed indoor team together, and we've been doing that. And one of the coolest feedback I got about that was one of the parents saying how after playing together as parents, she started to realize why I'm doing some of the things I'm doing with the kids as a coach.
That's great.
It was fun to hear that. She's like, oh, that's why they're doing some of those things. So.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
I think about like my own evolution as a coach with parents. And when I first
it is an evolution, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, totally. When I first started, every parent, I remember sitting parent meetings saying, parents, I won't talk to you. And then I grew up, I birthed my own offspring, and I realized, oh my gosh, all I want is the best for my kids.
Yeah.
Same as these parents. And it's kind of this aha moment, like, all want what's best. So how do I build that relationship? So I want what's best, they want what's best, and the two of us work together, we can make something great happen.
Yeah. So
then it came, not this big wall between the parents, but like, hey, a simple text, I noticed so-and-so is struggling in practice. Anything going on? And it's been amazing since I broke that wall down, since I finally understood what parents really want for their kids, how much more efficient my trainings are as I work with the parents for the benefit of the kids.
Yeah, you're raising an important point, and Coach, I think that kind of mimics off your point too. A roadblock that we didn't discuss is time. Like, for you to be thoughtful about taking a moment to send the text to the parent, because a lot of times we notice that a player's off, and so that intentionality for the time you're taking to have those meetings That's a real significant roadblock that involves this culture change. But what we need to realize is as youth soccer coaches, we have to work with the parents as well. Like, it's impossible for us not to connect with them. And when we do embrace them, things will be better. We will be more satisfied. We'll find more joy in what we're doing and the connection and the impact that we're having on kids. Other coach-driven parent engagement?
Yeah, so for mine, after each game, I want the parents to focus on the right things after the game, and so I send out a game reflection after each game, just going through what we did really well, what are the opportunities and stuff like that, so that they can see it from my perspective too, and a lot of times they may or may not have the background, so I want them to focus on the right things, and that seems to work pretty well.
That's great. I love it. We'll talk about trust in a second, although our time is I'm going to go 5 minutes late since we started 10 minutes late. Is that okay? Just take that. But that's fantastic. I do, for my team, and what I encourage through soccer parenting, you all can see some videos about this on the site, is a pregame huddle. When's the most stressful time to be a soccer parent? Like, when you're driving in the car to the game with your kid, and they're sitting in the back seat, you're driving, and your stress level is just a little bit different. Even if you don't really care that much if they win, like, you just feel a little bit more stressful. You get to the game, you bring your chair, you sit it down, they're doing the warm-up, like the stress is mounting for parents this entire time. So I started, and what I encourage parents to do, or coaches to do, is this pregame huddle. So about 8 minutes before every game, it's already figured out, my kids are in their last phase of the warm-up, they're 9, they can handle that, that's good for them from an autonomy standpoint in terms of their development as players to finish the warm-up on their own. I walk over to the parents and I meet with them for 2 minutes. It's not really a meeting, it's more like the pregame, like the sideline reporter puts the mic in the coach's mouth, like, so coach, what do you expect today? And that's pretty much what I do. I give like a 1 minute to 90 second, well, this is what we've been working on this week, these are my expectations for the game. Hey, we've been working on playing the ball around the back. So what that means is that the ball's kind of recirculating. So if you see a player wide pass it backwards, don't freak out, that's a good thing. They're going to bring the ball around, and if it goes back to the other side, please cheer as loud as you can, because that's something that we've been really working on. So I might give them a little bit of information about something like that. If I've seen the referee the game before, and it's a young referee or a novice, not necessarily age-wise, but a novice referee, and I know that it's probably going to be some bad calls, I'll let them know that. Hey, this referee is pretty new to the game, so don't have a lot of high expectations. Please just be supportive of that. And then I'll give them reminders about communication. Only supportive communication, not distracting, which we've already educated them about, not hostile communication. I do want to move on because I have a lot more to get to here. So these are some things, I think we got into all of these, but these are the coach-driven parent engagement. So the coach obviously is going to have communication, you're going to have team meetings, brief interactions, like be prepared for those. I always challenge coaches, do you know the first name of every parent on your team? You really should. So when you have that brief interaction, you can say, hey Tom, good morning, as you're walking out to the field when you happen to park next to them. That means a lot to the parent that you know their name. Individual player meetings, a couple people mentioned that. Transformational conversations. I had one of those with Piper's parents on my team this year. I love that name, Piper. She's just like a Piper. She's so spastic. And she's actually like so like happy and joyful all the time that she's distracting the team because they want to be a little bit more serious. You all probably have experienced players like that. So that was a transformational conversation that I prepared for and had with their parents. Like, hey, she's being a distraction. How can we work with this together so that she can become a little bit more focused so that the teams who's starting to get frustrated with her won't. And then parent education, which obviously we'll dive into. We talked about trust here. I'll go through these kind of quickly, but not too quickly because this is essential. So this is the foundation of the work that we're doing. So on my parent education and engagement sort of journey that I've been on, it started out with trust. That's what I wanted as a parent to establish in my relationship with my child's coach and what I felt was really lacking. Their trust in me, my trust in them. But this is a pervasive, deep issue that we have in soccer in America. We don't trust U.S. soccer. We don't trust U.S. club soccer. U.S. club soccer doesn't trust U.S. youth soccer. Clubs don't trust each other. Parents don't trust coaches. Coaches don't trust parents. None of us trust the referee. Like, it's this big, deep issue that we need to start changing this culture around. So I started out doing a lot of work with trust. And I want to share just a little bit of this with you today. So if we're going to be establishing trustful relationships, we need to demonstrate respect. Example that I just mentioned, knowing the first names of all the parents on your teams. You know, respecting their time, not keeping the kids late after practice if you know they have 3 kids that are all going in different directions. Demonstrating respect for each other, talking straight, being honest. Listen, you know, 2 months before tryouts, having that conversation with a parent. Listen, she's really struggling to keep up, and it seems like most of her teammates are passing her by. I just want to give you a heads up. I'm not making any final thoughts here, but I just want you to know that likely she's not going to make this team next year, and I want you to start thinking about that, and I want to have that upfront conversation with you. So 1, you can get ahead of it and give her some extra training if that's what you think she really wants, or 2, so that we're just aware, we're on the same page. That's a hard conversation to have, but that goes a long way in the right situations. Right your wrongs. You know, right your wrongs. Have you ever gone for a half and forgot to sub a kid in a game? I did that, not this season, the season before. She got there right as the kickoff was going on, and I had already switched the lineups around, and I forgot to get her in. Her parents thought I was punishing her for getting there late, but it wasn't her fault at all. It was her siblings' game ran late, and they didn't have a situation or have a plan in mind. So I just forgot. So right after the game, of course, to her in the halftime, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I forgot to get you in, and I righted that wrong. And then right after the game, went over to talk to the parents. I didn't want them to think that anything bad had happened. Other situations, you know, I might be yelled at a kid during practice and felt really bad about it. I have to go and talk to the parent and apologize. I have to apologize to the kid. Show loyalty. This is a pretty easy one to do that we get really wrong a lot. You know, kid comes to every game, they come to every practice, they're trying hard, and you're not playing them at least half of the game. That's not showing loyalty to them. They're being loyal to you, they're trusting you to develop them, then they deserve the playing time, whatever your club standards are that you might have. But unless you're playing at the super, super highest level, I would say that, and I'm not going to make any grand statements of what you have to do here, but every kid should be playing half of every game, at least. And that's showing loyalty. Delivering results. It's not about wins, it's about inspiring players. That's your job as a coach, is to inspire every player on your team so that they fall in love with the game in a way that will help them grow into a healthy adulthood. You need to be thinking about that and establishing trust. And if you talk about what a parent wants, that's what they want. They want their child to be inspired. That's the #1 result that you can deliver to parents and to players. The red one that's hard to read says, clarify your expectations. What are your expectations? I never set an expectation on my team that if your child's hurt, they still need to come to training. They still have to come to the game on time in a uniform. They're a team. I never set that expectation, and so last fall, one of the players on my team gets hurt. She shows up at halftime wearing a pink shirt, and I was really frustrated, but I had to step back and say, listen, I never even said this. It never crossed my mind that the parents wouldn't think to do that personally, honestly, but now I have that expectation in my team. So we need as coaches set really clear expectations. Get better. That's what a lot of this is about. You know, Gary Kearney, the Modern Soccer Coach, interviewed me a while ago for his podcast, and he said, empower parents, Skye. That's a really scary statement. Tell us why that's part of your mission statement. And you know, at the end of the day, that empowering parents to know more about the game, to understand what appropriate environments for development look like for our children, to understand things about functional movement, to understand things about player pathways, that's going to raise the game from the bottom, and it's going to make the game better, and it's going to challenge us as coaches to be better. So we're really establishing trust and working to get better and allowing ourselves to get better. Keeping an open mind instead of getting defensive about something. How can I be better? Extending trust. Extending trust. It has to be mutual. You know, do you trust the parents on your team? They're walking over to you after the game. Are you thinking, oh, they're going to scream at me? Or are you thinking, oh, they want to have a nice conversation? So having that trust and acceptance of each other. Confronting reality. I talked a little bit about this for the player that might not make the team the next year. Just the reality of what's going on. That establishes a trustful environment. Keeping your commitments. I had a parent email me in mid-January saying, the club said that we would be getting player feedback at the end of the fall season. It's January. They're 6 weeks late. I haven't received it. Do you think it's okay if I bring it up? If they're so fearful of being perceived as a crazy parent that they're not even asking the club to keep their own commitments. You have to keep your commitments. That's why be careful saying, I'm going to send an email after every game about feedback. I would say, when I can as a coach, I will. Unless you know as a coach you could do that. And then listening first. The parent at this meeting, you know, I have to ask more questions. Tell me more how you're feeling before we can move on. So this is me coaching my team, and I'll say I've shared to you, it's been a hard season for me. And without some really good coach education, I probably would have quit in December. So this is the type of coach education that we need to be focusing on. Club values, communication guidelines and expectations. We need to be educating, you all need to be educating yourselves on handling difficult parents. Emotional intelligence and coaching. On the Resource Center in the next couple weeks, I'll have a great webinar up with that. It's one of my favorite talks, and the favorite speaking that I do is on emotional intelligence. Communication skills, and then of course, on top of all that, as coaches, we need the soccer education as well. And I want to show you real quick the parent education site I have. So these are all the things that we need to be thinking about for parent education. But I do want to dive over to the Resource Center and give you this website. So everything that you need to know about the Soccer Parent Resource Center, again, Utah's bought access for you, for all the parents on your team. You have access to this. Usually it's $500 a year for a club, or it's $47 a year for a parent. It's free to every parent that's registered in Utah, and for all the coaches. If you just go to soccerparenting.com Utah, there's a page where you can find all the information about it. I'm going to spend about 1 minute and just show it to you real quick, if my Wi-Fi is still working. Yes, it is. Okay, so soccerparenting.com is this site. This is a public blog. This is not the Resource Center, just to be really, really clear. This is the blog where I'm putting out just kind of social share. This is, the coach before was saying he saw this interview. So the Resource Center, and this is the page that I've created for Utah. I know it's not showing up completely, but we can kind of work through this. This is the link. If parents hit this link, all you have to do is provide that link to parents, soccerparentresourcecenter.com/register/Utah. Give that to the parents. They click on it, and they get taken to this page where they just have to put in their first name, last name, the team that the club or clubs that they're affiliated with, and then they'll gain access. Just to give you a little bit of a snapshot on the site, the majority of the information is here in the library. And again, I know the view isn't great. Let's see if I can do that real quick. Is that a little bit better? And I think the Wi-Fi is not great here either. So here in the library is where all this content is. There's hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content. They come in the form of interviews, articles that are written, breakaways, which are quick, short videos, this Ask the Expert section, soccer talk, and ebooks. So a parent can come onto the library. There's a lot more information here aside from the library, but they could have an issue. Let's say tryouts are coming up, and they're stressed about tryouts. So they can search here by tryouts, and then they can see this awesome webinar I did with Jay Howell and Dan Abrahams, who's a sports psychologist from the UK, who's collaborated with me quite a bit about the stress of tryouts. Jay's talking about this from a club perspective. He does an excellent job with this. Jay is the director of the club that I'm affiliated with. He's the former executive director of the ECNL. Really, really strong leader, and does a really good job of giving parents some perspective. And Dan, Or, you know, they can watch this little short video at the end, this breakaway, which are these short videos, helping our kids handle tryout stress. This article that I wrote along with a family psychologist about 7 things parents must do if their child doesn't make the team. You know, these are really helpful things for parents to have. And again, all of this content is available for them. Guides are parent education. One of the ones that's probably most relevant for you all, I do have like Soccer Parenting 101, 201, 301, but is this sideline behavior guide. So this is online education. As a coach, you're going to have every parent in your team take this course, and then they can give you the certificate if you want to verify that they've taken it, or you can just encourage them to do it. At my parent meeting I had on Thursday night, we watched this 15 or 20-minute video. So you watch a video where we're actually talking about, instead of giving a parent a lollipop and saying be quiet, instead of saying it's Saturday and it's a silent Saturday, you can't talk, or instead of saying sign this code of conduct that we're going to hold you to that you don't really hold them to, we're pausing and we're saying let's educate parents on what supportive communication is, on what distracting communication is, so they really understand when they tell their child what to do when they're about to receive the ball, it is not helping them. It's distracting them. It's taking away from their development. And then obviously hostile communication. So again, a ton of content on the site that again you all have access to. And then just quickly, this coach area. So your coaches can log in, create a login, and then have access to this coach education hub. There's a webinar up here now, Effective Parent Engagement Strategies for You Soccer Coaches. We kind of just did a little bit of that today. I'm putting up this emotional intelligence and coaching. I have 8 webinars planned for coaches, or 8 education opportunities. And then on the right side here, there's some really cool webinars that have been done that Chris P. with Virginia Rush has done through my platform, where he's interviewed people like Tom Bates, sports psychologist from the UK, some really great people that will give them a lot of great give coaches a lot of great information. And those interviews are geared more towards coaches. Any questions for me? I really, really appreciate your time. I think you can see that this is something I'm passionate about. I really, really, really do believe that parent education and parent engagement will solve a lot of our problems. It truly, truly will make youth soccer better. And it is a solution to a lot of the problems that we have really had in the game. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time today. If you'd like to reach out to me at all, here's my contact information. I encourage you to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, everything's just at Soccer Parenting. We're at Skye, Eddy, Bruce also on Twitter, but it's Soccer Parenting on Twitter. And reach out to me, soccerparentresourcecenter.com. And did you all get this website? Here, I'll leave that slide. soccerparenting.com/Utah. We'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to get this to your parents. Okay? Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.